As a fitness professional, you know the joy of helping others, and you know it's more than just fitness. We're training the whole person. Wellness coaching provides expertise that goes beyond fitness and nutrition. It's a holistic approach to helping others become their best selves while reaching their goals. To us, there's no greater joy than that. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified wellness coach. Go to nasm.org/wellness.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Strong Mind, Strong Body, and I'm Angie Miller. You know the old saying, fake it till you make it. How many times have you been told that? I know I've been told that over and over again. Just fake it till you make it. But I have a guest today, and her motto is don't fake it, brave it. And I love that because I thought, I'm kind of tired of hearing fake it till you make it because that's kind of a hard thing to do. So my guest, Julie Schniers, she is an executive coach. And again, her model is let's brave it. Let's not fake it. She talks about how faking it holds you back from true growth and connection, but braving it really is about resilience and confidence. So Julie's going to give us some strategies today to communicate authentically and to overcome what holds you back from being your most confident self. So instead of faking it, we can all brave it to show up as our true self authentically. So Julie, I'm going to bring you in and have you introduce yourself. How are
Hey.
you doing?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be with you today, Angie. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you on, Julie. So Julie and I met some months ago, and to see her in person, she's as tall as I am short. And by the way, side note, super important, but Julie's got some of the coolest shoes I've ever seen. She made me want to go out and buy a lot of shoes with bling, which I still haven't, but someday it's on my bucket list. So Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I do want to start by saying, Julie and I both used to be teachers, and there's something about us teachers that seem to align and connect. So,
oh my gosh, that's right. Well, and I taught for 13 years. I was a high school speech and debate coach, which kind of comes into play in how I created this mind shift of let's not fake it until you make it, but believe it as you brave it. And I'll be really transparent. I find that I just need to apologize to every student that I ever shared that with because I, as a high school teacher, said, fake it till you make it to every kid that I ever coached. Anyway, so that was just a piece of my journey. I'm currently a keynote speaker, a leadership growth coach, and a team culture consultant. And so I spend a lot of time working with all kinds of people, whether you're an accounting firm or a boating company or hospital system, military. I've kind of worked with everybody because the tie that binds is people. And people, according to studies done, that 62% of us use fake it till you make it because we're people and we're trying to navigate how to navigate our everyday life. And so one of the things that I kind of just took apart was, why do I want to fake it until I make it? And what did I actually need in that space? And so I'm writing this keynote for a group of women athletes. To be real transparent, they are young, they're starting college, they are, looking for motivation, and motivational speaking is part of what I do. So I'm like, man, what's been most motivational to me in my life? And I thought back, and I had a coach who, when I did not believe in myself, he told me, fake it till you make it. And I'm like, well, what did I really need in that space? I needed somebody to believe in me because I didn't believe in myself. So I needed to believe in me, right? So anyway, it just led me down this path of taking apart, fake it until you make it, and pairing it against what I needed, which was believe it as you brave it. And so for that keynote, I just pitted those phrases against each other, which came up with a lot of interesting thoughts that I'm excited to share today.
I like that. And it came from a real experience. It came from somebody always saying to you, fake it till you make it. And you were like, well, okay, but
Mhm.
Really what I want to do is I want to believe in myself. And
Mhm.
so faking it to me is the opposite of belief because it's the opposite of
Mm.
authenticity. And if I'm really going to build confidence, somewhere in there, somebody has to teach me self belief. Because
Mm.
if it's not coming internally, there's got to be
Yeah.
some tools that somebody can work with me and say, okay, maybe this isn't your story. Maybe it's not your narrative, but
Mhm.
it doesn't mean it can't be. And
Mhm.
isn't that what coaching and therapy does, right?
Yep.
Helps us change our
Yes,
story. So I like that. So
100%.
take me on that journey. So you
Okay.
start to work with these female athletes, you're pitting
Yeah.
these two phrases. Where does it go
Mhm.
from there?
Well, and I love that you just brought up therapy, counseling, coaching. As a coach, I say you already have everything you need inside of you in order to show up as your best self. Sometimes it's just getting out of our own way, which I think is what my coach meant when he said fake it till you make it, because he did believe in me. He knew when he was sending me into those rooms that I was going to do well. I just didn't know. So really and truly on that journey that we're going on, if you look up fake in the dictionary, let me just read this for you: to pretend, to practice, to condition yourself, to tolerate negative emotions, a worthless imitation passed off as genuine, imposter. Like, even reading the definition, I'm like,
Mhm.
well, no wonder when I pulled off something really great, I looked back and went, oh my gosh, I hope they don't find out that I just pretended I knew what I was doing the whole time. Like, I'd created this imposter syndrome
Yeah.
because I felt like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to fake it till I make it. I'm just going to walk like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do the things that I think I should be doing, when all actuality, there was a piece of me that knew I could do the thing, right? Like, I did believe enough that I could walk into the room. I did believe enough that I could level up. So when you look at the definition of believe, let's just pit them against each other: to consider, to be true or honest. And I love that, to consider. Look, I don't have to know it all. I don't have to have it all figured out. I just have to consider that there is a piece of me that can do the thing that I'm scared to death to do. How about
Mhm.
this one? To accept something as true. So when I'm thinking about believing in myself, do I accept that there's a piece of me that can do this? I
Yeah.
have to accept, yeah, there is a piece of me. I don't have to, again, consider it to be true or honest. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just have to accept that this piece could be considered, to have a firm conviction as to the goodness, value, or ability of something. The
Mm.
ability of something. Like, I have to know that I can show up as my best self, and that's good enough. I don't
Yeah.
have to fake being perfect. Yeah.
I love that word consider. Can you just consider that it could be true? Can you invite it in as possibility? Because to me, consideration is possibility. What if it could be true? And I love the whole what if thing. And you know what's funny, Julie, is I looked it up too. And I said, one of the things that caught me about, like, I looked up faking it. And one of the things that came up was suppressing true feelings and emotions and
Mm.
experiences. And I thought, well, you know what? That's BS. Like, so we're basically telling people fake it, suppress, suppress. Well, suppression doesn't work. I mean, I talk about it constantly as a therapist. I talk about it all the time on this show. Suppression is like a boiling pot. And the more you try to suppress something, the more the pot's going to try to boil over and the lid's going to start doing that popping thing that it does. And so at the end of the day, faking it just makes me say, okay, I need to suppress my fears. But suppression just makes your fears knock louder. And so then it also said faking it is, I love this word, emotional masking. So I'm putting on this emotional, think of, at Halloween when you would wear a mask when I was young, and they used to have those really disgustingly hot masks that you used to put on
Yes.
your face, those plastic ones.
Such a good analogy.
And so I'm going to emotionally mask and
Mhm.
pretend that I don't have these fears. But then it said braving it. It said that when you're braving it, you're not pretending.
Right.
And I was like, there it is right there.
Yeah.
What if
Yeah.
I don't want to pretend anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just believing in yourself enough to take the next step, right? Because the next step, and I literally, I had a client last night message me and she's like, I just cannot work out and I need to work out. I'm falling apart. Help me. What's my next step? And I'm like, the next step is to put your shoes on.
Yeah.
That's the next step. She's like, and then you open the door. I don't want to work out. I have no motivation for that right now, but I do have a long-term goal, right? So I'm just going to at least put my shoes on. So I think when we get caught in the I can't, and how do I get through to the next right thing? It literally is well, you put the shoes on. You just take that next right step
Mhm.
towards whatever part of you need to believe in order to not show up fake. And you know what? I'll be completely honest with you. I faked a lot of things in my life, and it really wasn't like I'm pretending I'm not who I am. It was that I didn't believe in myself enough. So it wasn't. It was that I was convincing myself I can do something that I didn't think I could do. It wasn't like I'm going to show up not as my best self. It was like I don't think that I can do this, so I'm just going to pretend that I think I can. That was really the authentic piece, which I think when we talk about fake and imposter syndrome, that can be well, she's just not real. That's very different than I'm struggling to believe in myself and I'm struggling to take that next step, which I think it starts with how we communicate with our own head and heart. And I
Mhm.
love talking about how to have an attitude of affirmation because I think that's where it starts. Flipping our statements, right? I am succeeding at not, I don't want to be a failure. Like, okay, if you put, I don't want to be a failure, I don't want to fail, you're already putting oh my gosh, I'm fearful
Yeah.
that I won't be able to pull this off. So, what are you succeeding at? Flip your statements so that you are able to see what you believe enough in, and then you hold on to believing in you. You know, as a teacher, one of my best qualities and caused the most heartache for me was that I was really good at seeing a kid only for their strengths.
Mhm.
Now, what that meant was I got kids who no other teacher could budge. I got kids to do things for me and be a part of our team when they were having to make choices between like really hard stuff like gang life versus, I'm going to be in extracurriculars
Yeah.
where I taught. So when believing in a kid like nobody else had ever believed in, they were like, man, nobody's ever seen that in me before. However, sometimes you only see the strengths and it can be a flaw for a teacher too. But I will stand by. I did more good by seeing the good than anything else. And
Yeah.
what if we all looked at each other and ourselves in the mirror of what are my strengths instead of focusing on, I don't think I can do the thing, or I'm going to have to pretend I know what I'm doing. No, what do you know? What are
Mhm.
you already succeeding at? Focusing on that, pointing out the present, and making it a constant routine so that you are communicating good things with your head and heart. I think that's how you flip from faking it to believing you have it in you to brave it.
So I think that there's a lot there. And I think that that first statement of starting with your strengths, I agree that I think that we are so focused on what we can't do and where our
Mm,
limitations are. And so what if we just focused on where our strengths are and where do we start? What are we really, really good at? And
mhm,
how do we take those things that we're really good at, those strengths that really pull us through? And how do we start that as the foundation of how
mhm,
we start believing in ourselves? And I
mhm.
know, Julie, you talk a lot about, showing up as your best self. And you talk about breaking it down with communication, connection, and confidence. And I think what you're talking about now is the communication piece, is what are the words that I'm communicating to my brain? Is that kind of where you're saying?
Oh, it's perfect. Well
So the whole communication piece is what are the words that are coming out of my mouth, or maybe they're not even being
said.
spoken, but
Mhm.
they're swirling around. They're doing the swirls in my head and I'm communicating those messages. So what if I pause and say, okay, I hear myself talking about a limitation. How do I turn it into a strength? And how do I then start from that?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, is that a good place to start, or what do you think?
I think that that's 100% right on, and it's easier said than done, which I think is what leads to how I picked apart the next phrase. So if we look at fake it versus believe it, we kind of pitted those against each other. And now if we pit as you versus until you against each other, let's talk about that. So if I'm faking it until I make it, for all the high achievers in the room, I know you feel it because when is the until you? Like, when do we hit there? When do we achieve? And that's something that I struggled with when I'm breaking down, like, what are my struggles and what do I actually need? Well, I kept moving my bar. the high achiever in me was like, okay, when am I going to make it? Until I, right? And let's go ahead and let's throw that analogy into being a parent. If you're a parent, you get that. I'll be able to breathe when the kids are not newborns. I'll be able to do things differently when they're not in diapers. Well, once we're through this toddler stage, and if we do not stop and enjoy the journey, your kids are going to be graduated and you're going to still be going, well, when? The until you is a really dangerous place to get caught in, because as you, that's where we get to enjoy the journey. And if we are waiting for it to be perfect, if we're waiting for it to be exactly right, then you're going to be stuck in until you zone. And let me tell you something, that's a place that will just keep spinning the same stories in your head and you'll never find joy. Joy is found in the journey, but you have to plan for that so that you can embrace the journey.
So you made me think, and I don't, this book always comes to my mind.
Ooh, what is
Always. It's The Road Less Traveled, one of the first, quote, self-help books I ever remember. It was published years ago, decades. And I remember the very first line of the book is, life is difficult.
it?
And in his whole premise was exactly what you just said. So his first line is, life is difficult. And he's talking about how we put our lives on hold until we solve this problem. And then we put them on hold until we solve this problem. And he's like, you know what? Wake up. Life isn't about starting life when the big problems are over. Life is about doing life
Right.
as the problems are happening and being present for them, while also learning how to experience things that aren't pulling you down. So in other words, not getting sucked into the vapor of this sucks and this big thing is going on, and it is, and there's still components of my life that I can enjoy, and there are things that I'm going to learn. So, Julie, before I give you back the mic, because I want to hear your thoughts on that, I do want to reintroduce you. So, I'm Angie. This is Strong Mind, Strong Body. We're talking about why we fake it. So, we're just kind of talking about this whole narrative that we have all been told: fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. And Julie Schniers is an executive coach, and she's kind of calling our bluff on that one and saying, do we need to fake it? Because isn't faking it leading us to suppression and imposter syndrome? What if we brave it? And what if we think about ways we can move forward with a more kind of cultivated, strong mindset? So what do you think, Julie, about this whole life is difficult, stop putting it on hold till our problems are over?
I mean, it's perfect, right? That's exactly it. That is the whole piece of the puzzle that I think is easiest for us in the season of busy, in the season of life, or when you're reaching for a goal that's really challenging. It's easy to get caught up in, well, I'll enjoy, I'll enjoy a bit of sugar or a piece of cake when I lose that 10, 15 pounds. Reality is we've got to learn how to enjoy the journey, but also remember what we're fighting for, right? So you asked me before we got on, how's life? And I have 2 small children and I am juggling all the plates. My husband is working really, really hard at his job right now. So I'm kind of having to juggle a ton by myself. And I'm like, don't ask me that question, which is an exact example of life is real. It's difficult. You're 100% right. It's just difficult. And it might always be a little bit difficult. So how do we enjoy the journey? It has to be intentional. You have to make that decision. You have to decide, this is my plan. This is my ideal self. This is my real self. Here's my journey, but I'm going to celebrate progress all along the way. And when I do strategic planning with organizations, or I work with a company on how to recreate their culture, we talk about the power of celebrating along the journey and not just waiting until the end. Because if you wait until the end, chances are you lose your people. Chances are you lose your own motivation. So creating some ability to celebrate along the way helps us enjoy the journey. But it does take, like you just said, waking up in the morning and being intentional. I'm going to have a good day and I'm going to find the good.
Yeah. And I think, that's part of how, how do we show up as our confident self? Well, we have to stop presenting that, well, when this is over, I'll feel better. When I
Yeah.
achieve this, I'll be good enough.
Yeah.
And I talk about this a lot, and a lot of guests bring this up, and I've brought it up a million times. I swear it feels like it comes up in every episode. So I hope that everyone is actually listening. And that is this whole mindset of us overachievers and high
Mhm.
achievers going, okay, I'll be good enough to do that when I get the certification, or I'll be good enough to do that when I win this award. And so we're constantly, but what happens with high achievers is the minute we win the award or the minute we get that certification, we're like, okay, now what? Okay, now what? And the thing is that the now what is us putting our feet on the ground and saying, I'm as ready as I'm going to be at this moment in time. And the gifts that I have to share with the world are worth sharing now, not putting on hold, because we don't need that next certification or that next award to show up authentically and to help people where we are in our journey. Because wherever we are is we've got something to share with someone else and they've got something to share with us. So
Say
what
it
are we
louder for
about?
the people in the back.
What's that?
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Exactly. So Julie, you know, i- you talk about you know, this whole braving it and kind of being action oriented. And, how do you continue to pull people out of this? I know we've kind of thrown some ideas around, but when you do your strategic planning, do you
Mhm.
have like a 1, 2, 3 step,
Mhm.
or is it processing? What is it exactly?
I think everybody's different. However, I have a little thing that I love doing with all of my clients, and I do it in a lot of my workshops, and that is we create our legacy lens. And I love this because it helps us show up intentionally and authentically. And this is what it really boils down to. We are all going to be remembered. We are. You are having interactions today that those people are going to remember how they interacted with you today, right? That you're making an impression everywhere you go, with every business that you do, with every client you take on, with every customer you work with. You are creating an impression. But the question is, how do you want to be seen and known? And I can't just say, I want to be seen and known as kind if I'm not intentionally and actively doing kind things every single day. Just like I can't say, I want to be a triathlon runner if I'm sitting on the couch eating pizza every night. It doesn't work that way. Like
Mhm.
that's not how life works. So what I do with my clients is we brainstorm for 2 minutes about all the words that captivate who we are and who we want to be. So for me, that was I want to be a good mom. I want to be taking care of myself because I really stink at self care. I want to be somebody who makes an impact in the world around me. I want to be a good Christian. Like for me, what are my personal words? And I had like 2 minutes of brainstorm, and I look at that brainstorm and then I pull out 3 to 5 words that I call pillars. And those are the pillars that I want to intentionally live by. And they are, for me, positive impact, wholehearted, and relationships. Those were my three. And then I look at how do we put legs on that. So yeah, relationships is one thing that I want to be intentional about, and that's in service, time, and support for myself, my friendships, my love of the Lord, my kids. Right? Like, what does that look like for me? I want to make a positive impact in the world around me. Okay, what does that mean? That means I'm growing the world around me. That means that I'm being intentional about saying yes to the things that are positive. And I love this because it creates this ability to go, okay, do I need to say yes to that thing? Or do I need to say no because it doesn't fit my legacy lens? I think it just helps us decide what we want to move towards, because in a world that tells us we need to do it all, sometimes we got to go, but where are my strengths and where do I want to make it? Which kind of leads to the make it versus brave it. Okay, so we pitted fake it against believe it. We took until you versus as you. And now if we take make it versus brave it, let me give you the definitions of this, okay?
Mhm.
Make it says to pull it off. To pull it off, like you did it. Succeed, thrive, achieve, accomplish, to cause to happen. And those, if you are a high achiever and you believed you faked it, that's going to play against each other. An imposter isn't going to succeed. Like, so we're stuck in this realm of I can never make it, right? And if you're braving it, listen to this definition: having or showing mental strength to face danger, fear, difficulty. Okay, so maybe I'm just believing in the little piece of me that I can do this, and I'm going to move forward bravely. Having or showing courage to face or endure with courage. What if we didn't have to make it? What if we just had to brave it to the next step of the goals we've set in front of ourselves? So if we're taking fake it and flipping it all the way over to brave it, because
Mhm.
we're believing in us, we're enjoying the journey, and we're just braving what's next, how much happier would life be over, I've got to make it? And oh my gosh, I hope they don't figure it out that I'm not that good at it. You
Yeah.
know?
I like that. I love that your model in kind of helping clients and helping people is to take common phrases that we've been told and kind of position them against one another, because our mind loves to draw parallels and our mind loves to create images. And to me, what you just did was created imagery for me, and our mind, I think, does better. We do better at bringing things to life when we can create imagery. And plus, who doesn't love the word braving it? And so we all want to brave it. We all want to show up with our courage. And I like the way you just described, put legs on your intentions, meaning, okay, so if my goal is to have positive relationships, how do I put legs on that? Well, that means I have to intentionally set aside time to foster those relationships. It means that
Correct.
I have to intentionally do the things that I think make me a positive person to be in a relationship with, whatever that looks like, whether that looks like being a good listener, being a positive role model. And so it isn't just how do I want the world to remember me, but how do I put legs on that so that I bring it to life and not just say, hey, don't forget that I did XYZ for you. It's
Right.
not about that. It's
Right.
hey, I want you to remember me because this visual image of me is in your mind of being this positive role model who is a good listener and all these
Right.
different things.
Right.
So I love that. I think that's so well said. Is there anything else, Julie, when you're kind of doing this work with people and positioning these narratives against one another? Is there anything we haven't covered that you think is worth kind of inviting in for people to consider as they get out this fake it till you make it mindset?
Man, that's such a loaded question. I think what comes to mind, and probably because it's what I needed to hear, is you are good enough. How you show up is up to you, but don't fake it. Don't convince yourself that you are not good enough in order to have to feel like you fake it. So
Yeah.
if you are good enough, buy that idea, knowing that it might be still challenging. And I say growth equals pain, because here's the deal. If I've decided, if I've set a goal, I'm growing. I've decided to grow. And if I'm growing, that means I'm going to have to change something. I may have to do something that doesn't feel good. I may have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable, because change is required if I'm going to grow, right? And growth equaling change means that change is going to have a loss somewhere. Maybe I decide I want to work out more and I lose TV time. Maybe I do want to get a little more cut, so I'm going to have to cut some sugars out of my, and that feels like a loss. So
Mhm.
change means loss, which means loss means a little bit of pain. So
Right.
when you're growing and you're feeling the pain, don't give up or see it as I'm not cut out for this. Don't see it as I'm not good enough. Don't see it as I can't do this thing, because when we're growing, there's going to be pain.
Mhm.
Enjoy the journey because you set out for a goal that you can do. Believe in yourself. Enjoy the journey and brave what's next, because
Yeah.
you are enough.
Well, I have to give those 2 golden nuggets. I have to make sure everyone heard you there. So talk about shouting out from the back here is growth is pain. And I do want to leave everyone with that one. Growth is pain. We can't have growth without change, and change often comes with so many pain points. And the other thing, Julie, that you said is you're worth it. You're good enough as you are. And I want everyone to sit with that, whatever you have to do, because you are worth it and you are good enough. Right where you are is perfect. Where you go from here is just layering all the good so that you can even be a better version of yourself. So, Julie, I would like to have you share with everybody if they want to reach out to you, how can they best reach you?
Oh, thanks. Well, you can find me on my website. So if you are looking for a keynote speaker or someone to lead a professional development workshop, I also talk about how to make your people the priority, julieschniers.com. But I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. And I would love for you to follow, interact, ask questions, because growing myself is a goal that I have. And being able to just help more people make a positive impact in the world around me is a growth goal that I am willing to keep pushing forward on. So
Awesome.
braving.
All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing this because I think this was super insightful and great for everyone to hear. So, thank you to all of our Strong Mind, Strong Body listeners. I hope you brave it instead of fake it. And we look forward to seeing you next week.